Hey lovelies, so as promised, here is the video on how to make great rice for mystery box number 2. So this is for tomorrow's mystery box. I'm gonna go over a few tips on how to make a nice fluffy rice without it being mushy. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna soak my rice for at least 30 minutes. So I'm using basmati rice, and that's the rice that we're gonna be using in class as well. So I've soaked this rice for 30 minutes. And the reason why I do this is that it plumps up the rice a little bit because water gets absorbed into the grains. And then when you cook it, it doesn't become mushy, right? You're not gonna end up with like mushy rice. You don't want mushy rice, you want nice and fluffy. So I'm soaking this in cold water for 30 minutes. And then the second tip is I'm going to use my strainer to rinse the rice until the water is nice and clear. Okay, so that's the second step that I'm going to do after I soak it, is make sure to rinse it nice and clear. And the third step is to ensure that I've seasoned my water once it's in my pot. Which I'm going to show you. I'm going to season my rice a little bit differently. The reason being is that rice is very bland. You need to add salt to it. So depending on how much rice you're cooking, it depends on how much salt you're going to use. So I'm using about a teaspoon of salt for this recipe. This is 1 cup of rice. So just to recap, you're gonna soak your rice for half an hour in cold water. Once it's soaked, you're gonna rinse it with your strainer until the water runs clear. And then you're going to add salt to your rice as it's cooking. Okay, so I rinsed my rice for about 30 seconds to a minute. And the reason why I rinsed my rice is to get rid of any debris or dirt or dust, any pebbles, also the starches. We don't want extra starches in our rice. So I rinsed it until the water runs clear, and then I just put it on my bowl. And then, so like I said, this is 1 cup of basmati rice. So I'm gonna be using 1.5 cups of water. So depending on what type of rice you're gonna use, the ratios may change. But this is a general rule of thumb for basmati rice: 1 cup of rice to 1.5 cups water. So, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a big saucepan, a pot. I'm gonna add my rice to it. And there's different methods to do this, but I'm showing you the simplest way. I'm gonna add my rice. And I'm gonna add my 1.5 cups of water. So I have 1 cup of rice, and I'm gonna add 1.5 cups of water. And here I'm adding some seasoning. So whenever you're adding your salt, you would add it now, right? So I'm using, actually, because we're doing like the Asian themed mystery box, I'm gonna be making stir fry or fried rice with this rice, which we'll be making tomorrow. So I'm adding half a teaspoon salt with half a teaspoon of turmeric. So tomorrow, if you guys want to add some extra spices to your rice, this is a great way to do it. And then here I'm adding the half teaspoon of sesame seed oil and 4 teaspoons of soya. Once again, this is one of the mystery ingredients, the sesame seed oil. And obviously the rice is one of the mystery ingredients as well. So I'm just gonna add that in. I'm just gonna grab my wooden spoon, I'm gonna mix it. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put it on my stove uncovered, and I'm gonna wait until it comes to a boil. So I'm gonna do that, and I'll meet you back in a minute. Okay, so my rice is on the stove, and I have it on high. And what we're gonna do, this is uncovered at this point. We're gonna wait until it comes to a boil, okay? As soon as it comes to a boil, we're gonna put the lid on it and we're gonna reduce the temperature. Okay, so let's wait until it comes to a boil, and then we will reconvene after that. Okay, as you can see, my rice is boiling. My water's boiling. So I'm gonna stir it, give it a quick stir. Okay, so you wanna see the bubbles all around. And what I'm going to do now is I'm gonna put the lid on it and I'm going to reduce the temperature to low. Okay, so I've cooked my rice for 15 minutes. And how you know your rice is almost done is basically you start seeing these holes, okay, in the rice. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off the heat completely. And I'm just gonna fluff my rice with a fork. That's it. And then I'm gonna put the lid on again. And that's it. You're gonna let it sit for another 5 minutes and then your rice is done. Okay, so my rice is complete. I've let it sit on the stove for 5 minutes covered with the heat turned off. So let's just recap. I soaked my rice for 30 minutes in cold water. Then I rinsed it with a strainer until the water runs clear, right, to get rid of any extra starches. I added my 1 cup of rice to the pot with 1.5 cups of water. I added some soy, some seasoning, and then I brought it to a boil. And as soon as it starts to boil, I stirred it with a spoon, I covered it, and I reduced the heat to low, okay? And then you let it simmer for 15 minutes. And then after 15 minutes, you uncover, you fluff with your fork, and then you let it sit for 5 minutes with the heat turned off. And then you're gonna end up with this nice, fluffy rice that's super delicious, and it's not mushy, perfect texture and consistency. All right, lovely, so I will see you tomorrow for mystery box number 2.